The morning my daughter called to say she'd found me a room at a nice place, I was standing in my kitchen in my thick wool socks. I remember the exact way the steam curled off my coffee, swirling in slow, lazy ribbons against the morning light. "A nice place," she said, her voice bright and efficient, as if she were describing a new bistro or a boutique hotel she'd stumbled upon. She meant well. She always means well. She's my daughter, and she carries that fierce, frantic love that children get when they realize their parents are aging. But as she kept talking, something in my chest went bone cold. It's that specific chill you feel when you suddenly realize that someone you love, someone who once looked to you for every answer, has started looking at you as a problem to be solved, a logistical hurdle to be cleared. I didn't say a word for a long time. I just stood there, leaning against the counter, watching that steam rise toward the ceiling until it simply vanished into the air. And a thought struck me, sharp as a needle. They really believe it. They actually believe that because I'm 86, I'm disappearing along with the steam. They think the me they know is evaporating, leaving behind only a frail shell that needs to be tucked away in a nice place with padded carpets and scheduled meal times. I need to tell you something right now that nobody else has the courage to say. Not your doctor, who looks at your charts instead of your eyes. Not the glossy magazines that feature silver-haired models playing pickleball. And certainly not the well-meaning child hovering near the phone, waiting to fix your life. They lied to you about living alone. They've built an entire cultural myth around the idea that a woman of a certain age living in an empty house is a quiet tragedy. They hand you that story like a medical diagnosis, a condition to be treated with assisted living and constant supervision. Most of the experts who first told me that an empty house was evidence of failure are long gone now, buried and forgotten. And yet, here I am, still making my coffee, still standing on my own 2 feet. They want you to believe that silence is an absence, a hole where a life used to be. But they are wrong. Silence isn't the absence of life. It is the first honest thing you will ever hear. Let's talk about loneliness for a moment, because we're all so afraid of it. We run from it like it's a shadow that might swallow us whole. But in my 86 years on this earth, the loneliest I have ever been was not in this quiet house. It was sitting at a table full of people who loved me, yet needed me to perform a version of myself I no longer recognized. I remember a Thanksgiving about 15 years ago. My son-in-law's kitchen was packed wall to wall. The air was thick with the smell of burnt sweet potatoes and too much expensive perfume. Someone's toddler was screaming in the hallway, and televisions were blaring in 3 different rooms at once. I sat in the middle of that chaos, smiling until my cheeks ached, passing the bread, laughing when I was supposed to laugh. And I felt so invisible I honestly thought I could have walked through a wall and no one would have noticed. I was a prop in their holiday play. When I finally drove home at 11 that night, I felt more emptied out, more hollowed by togetherness than I had in years. That was loneliness. That crowded, warm, well-lit kitchen was the loneliest place I've ever been. Compare that to my house now, the house they pity me for. At 86, I wake up not because an alarm tells me to, or because a nurse is knocking on the door with a plastic cup of pills. I wake up because the light comes through my east window and lands on the floorboards at a very specific angle. It's a particular shade of amber, a deep, honeyed glow that I have never seen anywhere else in the world. I watch it move. I take my time. I make coffee. Real coffee. Bitter and dark, the way my mother used to make it on the farm. I don't turn on the news to hear about a world that feels increasingly frantic. I don't reach for a phone to check if I'm still relevant to someone's social feed. I just sit with that light and that coffee and whatever is moving around inside my own mind. And I'm telling you, there is more raw, vibrant life in that one quiet hour than in most of what I did in the 50 years of busyness that came before it. I have a friend, Myrtle. She's 84, and a few years ago she gave in. She moved in with her daughter's family in Indiana. She's surrounded by love, she's safe, and she has grandchildren running underfoot. But every time we talk on the phone, Myrtle sounds like she's whispering from inside a thick stone wall. She hasn't decided what to eat for breakfast in 3 years. She doesn't choose when she goes to bed or what color flowers to plant in the pots out front. Her family loves her completely, and in that love, they have quietly, gently erased her. They call it safety. I call it a slow, polite undoing of a human soul. Now, I mentioned that I lost something at 64 that took me nearly 20 years to truly understand. To explain that, I have to tell you who I was before. For most of my life, I was terrified of the quiet. I was the woman who filled every room with noise, every weekend with plans, every silence with a question. I stayed busy the way a person stays busy when they're running away from a fire. I thought the problem was that I needed more connection, more purpose, more roles to play in other people's lives. I thought I was a people person, but the truth was much harsher. I was running because I hadn't learned how to be decent company for myself. Every quiet room felt like an accusation of my worthlessness. Every empty chair felt like evidence of a social failure. I was living inside a definition of a full life that belonged to someone else, and I was calling my own inner restlessness a character flaw. The year my husband passed, 2009, a brutal, bone-chilling February, the ground was frozen so solid you couldn't have driven a tent stake into it. After the funeral, after the casseroles stopped arriving and the phone stopped ringing, nobody came by for 3 days. I remember the specific quality of that silence. It wasn't empty. It was heavy. I sat in the living room and listened to the rhythmic tick of the old radiator. I could smell his wool coat still hanging by the back door, cedar, cold air, and that faint peppery scent that was just him. I expected to shatter into 1,000 pieces. I waited for the walls to close in, but they didn't. Instead, something in me went very, very still. And in that stillness, for the first time in 4 decades, I met myself. Not the wife, not the mother, not the volunteer, but the woman who lived under all those titles. So, what did I lose at 64? I lost the need for approval, that invisible, relentless, exhausting hunger to be witnessed by other people just to feel like I actually existed. I spent 60 years performing patience, performing contentment, performing a cheerful okayness for an audience that wasn't even paying attention. When the house got quiet and I finally stopped fighting to fill it, I didn't lose a thing. I put down a weight I'd been carrying so long I thought it was a part of my own skeleton. That was the lie they told us. That living alone means you have nothing. The truth is that living alone means you finally have room. Room for your own thoughts to reach their full height. Room for your own preferences to exist without negotiation. Some mornings I go out to the back porch before the sun is up. The neighborhood is a study in blue and gray. A dog barks 3 streets over. A few early birds start their morning chatter. The sky shifts from black to that bruised, beautiful dark blue that only exists for a few minutes. And I stand there and think, I built this. I built this quiet. I arranged these days. Nobody handed this piece to me as a gift. And because of that, nobody has the power to take it away. At 86, I am the queen of my own small, silent empire. I eat what I want. If I want toast and jam for dinner, I have it. I wake up when my body is done sleeping, not when a schedule dictates. I sit in my own silence without offering a single apology to the world. My daughter still calls me once a week about those nice places. She talks about the social directors and the group outings and the community. I listen, and I tell her I love her. And when we hang up, I pour another cup of coffee. I sit back down in my favorite chair, the one with the worn armrests, and I watch the light move across the floor. It moves so slowly, so unhurriedly, like it has absolutely nowhere else to be. And at 86, neither do I. They told you that silence was the shape of a life going wrong. They told you it was the sound of the end. But the real truth, the one they don't put on greeting cards, is that sometimes silence is the shape of a life finally going honest. It's the sound of a woman finally coming home to herself. I wonder how many of you are sitting in a quiet room right now, listening to me. Maybe the sun is setting where you are, or maybe it's the middle of a long, sleepless night. I wonder if you're feeling like that quiet is something to be ashamed of. Are you looking at the empty rooms of your house as a measure of what you've failed to hold on to? I want to ask you something, and I want you to be very honest with yourself. Is the silence in your house a weight you're struggling to carry, or is it just a room you haven't learned how to live in yet? If every noise, every obligation, and every person who expects something from you disappeared tomorrow, who would be left sitting there? Because I'm telling you, whoever that person is, she's been waiting a long, long time to meet you. She's not a tragedy. She's not a problem to be solved. She's the person you were always meant to become before the world told you to be someone else. I know it's scary. I know the first few days of true silence can feel like you're treading water in the middle of a dark ocean. But don't call the daughter. Don't look for the nice place just yet. Stay in the water. Stay in the quiet. Listen to the radiator. Watch the light on the floorboards. And wait. Because eventually, the fear leaves and the peace arrives. And once you find that peace, you'll realize that living alone isn't a sentence, it's a promotion. They lied to us about the end of the story. They told us it was a fading out, but from where I'm sitting, with my bitter coffee and my amber light, it looks a lot more like a beginning. I hope you stay in your own house long enough to find that out for yourself. I hope you give that woman sitting in the quiet a chance to speak, because she has things to tell you that you won't hear anywhere else. I think about my friend Myrtle often. I think about her sitting in that lively, noisy house in Indiana, surrounded by people who love her so much they've forgotten she's a person. I pray that one day she finds the courage to demand a little bit of silence for herself. I pray she remembers that she doesn't need to be safe if it means being invisible. As for me, I'll stay right here. I'll keep my wool socks and my bitter coffee. I'll keep my radiators and my dusty bookshelves. I'll keep the amber light that only hits my floor at 7:15 in the morning. My daughter will call again next Tuesday, and I'll tell her I'm doing just fine. And I'll mean it. The silence isn't a wall. It's a door. And I've finally walked through it. I suggest you do the same. Don't let them tell you you're disappearing. You're just finally becoming clear, and that, my dear, is the greatest victory of all. So, when you finish listening to this, don't immediately turn on the television. Don't call someone just to hear a voice. Just sit. For 5 minutes. For 10. Sit with the person you are right now. Look at your hands. Listen to your breath. Notice the way the air feels in the room. You are still here. You are not a problem. You are a masterpiece of survival, and the silence is your gallery. I'll be here, in my house, doing the same. We aren't alone. We are just finally, wonderfully, ourselves. And that is more than enough. It always was. It just took us 80 years to hear it. I hope you stay long enough to hear it too. Because once you do, you'll never be afraid of an empty room again. You'll realize it was never empty. It was just waiting for you to arrive.